Rocking and rolling. Okay, great. So I'm gonna let these two people in so that they don't miss any of the information. Great. So thank you all again so much for being here. My name is Marquita Thomas. I'm Executive Director of the Los Angeles LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and really want to thank you all for being here for this Love Languages workshop. Just want to make you aware of some of the other programming that the Chamber has, some of it that's already passed, but that you can get access to. We have done workshops, at least one, but sometimes as many as 2 a week since the shelter in place order went into effect, because we want to make sure that you're still having the ability to market your business and get new skills. So if you go to our Facebook page on Facebook, you can see in the video section our videos on how to drive sales through corporate storytelling, how B corporations are creating shared prosperity, pandemic-proof, simplified, strategic success practices, and Ask a QuickBooks Pro Advisor with the LAGLCC's own bookkeeper, Bill Shepard. So if you ever want to check out any of that programming, it's available 24 hours a day on our Facebook page. And then some of our upcoming programming, this Thursday, we're having a virtual business mixer, so that it's just basically our current and future members who are marketing their business. It's round robin style, gives you an opportunity to get new business and give new business. That's completely free. And then next Wednesday, we're having a workshop on being a consciously inclusive leader. And the Wednesday after that, we're doing our virtual luncheon. The last week of the month, we are still fleshing out the details for a really great marketing webinar on how to do lead generation and get better SEO for your website. So that's all the programming that we have coming up. Now I want to introduce to you today's speaker. He is an LAGLCC member, Dr. Gregory Kanias. He currently serves as president and CEO of Soul to Soul, a company that provides couple and parenting retreats with a double major in psychology and American history from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and an MA and PhD from the California School of Professional Psychology. Dr. Kanias is currently an associate professor at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology here in Los Angeles. He also serves on the adjunct faculties at Pepperdine University and National University. He currently serves as a member of the American Psychological Associates Joint Task Force to revise the professional practice guidelines for working with sexual minorities. Dr. Kanias is a frequent presenter at regional, national, and international conferences on LGBTQ issues, relationship issues, parenting, intimate partner violence, foster care, substance abuse, and psychological treatment of ethnic minority populations. We only bring you the best presenters here at the LAGLCC. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass the floor over to Dr. Kanias.
So thank you for that introduction, and thank you to you and to the Chamber for having me. I'm excited about this morning and presenting. Marquita's put a copy of the quiz into the chat, and it went out in her email last night. So if you could at some point print that out, we're going to do the quiz during the workshop. So I'm going to share screen. And so this is love language is the keys to understanding your spouse and partner. If you have at any point have trouble hearing me, please let me know. I have a therapist voice and my students are always saying, Dr. Kanias, we can't hear you. So don't wait until the end of the workshop, because that won't be helpful, but just pipe in. I also run my workshops very informally. So at any point, if you have questions, you don't have to wait until the Q&A at the end. Please feel free to raise your hand and jump right in. So on this end, Marquita, it is not advancing.
All right, let's see what we can do about that. Let me go over here to
I'm going to keep going now because I have a copy of that
Sure,
presentation.
sure.
So let's start with the three main reasons why couples come to therapy. Any idea?
Hey, I would say people go to therapy because maybe there's something wrong or just some turmoil going on individually or between a relationship.
I would agree. Thank you, Jeff. Specifically, do you have any idea? There are three that bring most couples in. Okay.
Financial issues.
Yes, financial is one of them. Issues with money and don't know how to oftentimes resolve that. So very quickly, two savers usually get along really well. Two spenders, not so much. A saver and a spender oftentimes have a problem too. So that is one of them, finances. What do you think the other two might be?
I'm going to throw in there possibly monogamy, non-monogamy.
That comes up, and it's related to one of them, one of the others. So sex. So
How about sex and romance?
Yeah, sex and romance basically is one of the ones that bring people in because this is a taboo topic for most people. We don't grow up in most homes talking about it. And so people have issues with conversations about what they want, what they don't want, etc. And so we talk about that when I do the weekend workshops, that we do a very in-depth discussion about this. I teach, as Marquita mentioned, I teach a class in sexuality, and part of that class is always to take my students to the Pleasure Chest in West Hollywood. I don't know if you're familiar with the Pleasure Chest, but they're usually frightened when I tell them that on the first day of class. It's like, huh? I had two older women when I first started teaching the class tell me, like, what if my pastor sees me there? I'm like, girl, if your pastor's there, I think we're good. The pastor's probably a freak too. So it's not something that people usually talk about. So it is something that is of concern. And then the third one would be communication. So that's one of the things that we're talking about today when we talk about the love languages. The love languages is just one aspect of communication. We do this in the workshops that I run for couples, but it's just one form. But I think it's really helpful, and I've done this workshop a number of times, and even couples that have been together for a number of years have found it really useful. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, active service, and physical touch. So words of affirmation, this love language is expressed using words to build up the partner, things like verbal compliments. Sometimes it can be short and simple praises, and how they're communicated are to actively listen, to encourage, to affirm, to appreciate, to empathize, and to praise. So actions to take are unexpected text, just an unexpected text to your partner or spouse, leaving an encouraging note, sending a sentimental card, and to use words that affirm the love and connection. So you look amazing, you're beautiful, I love you, I miss you, things that affirm that. Things to avoid, non-constructive criticism, like things like, are you sure you want to eat that? So I was working with a gentleman independent of his wife many years ago, and we were talking about the issues that they had. And I said, well, what are some of the issues they had? Well, we have conversations, we have conflicts about stuff. He was very thin and she was heavy set. And I'm like, well, what do you say to her? Like, don't eat that Twinkie. Do you need that? You're really fat. I'm like, sir, that probably is why you have some problems. Who wants to hear that? But it's like basic stuff, working on that. You'd be surprised, but people don't really realize that that is an issue. So I've done a number of presentations also on like verbal abuse, and most families don't identify that as a form of abuse. We have sometimes nicknames that we grow up with that people don't really enjoy, like peanut and Gordo and things like that. So it's being really mindful of that and affirming verbally and not providing criticism. Questions so far, comments? Okay, so the next is quality time. And this love language is about giving your partner your undivided attention. And what that means is unfocused, uninterrupted focus time where the person is the center of attention. This has become harder and harder with cell phones. So in classrooms, I have to kind of tell folks and write it into my syllabus now that you can't be on your cell phone, you can't be communicating, because I have students who will be on Facebook updating their status on Man Crush Monday, Women Crush Wednesday. They're sitting in the back of the class, doing this. I myself am a reformed person. I caught myself a couple of times in church with the pastor looking down at me like, would you like to go to heaven, or would you like to make brunch plans with your friends? So brunch plans with backsliders was out, and I had to reform myself because that's not helpful. So being really, really present in the moment is one of the ways to communicate this. So actions to take: create special moments and experiences with the partner that reflect his or her interests. So things like picnics, walks on the beach, a visit to the museum, sporting events, overnight getaways. Things to avoid: distractions, again, like when you get together, like cell phones, or avoiding long periods where you are apart. The third is receiving gifts. And so this love language speaks to the importance of receiving meaningful and thoughtful gifts. And so gifts don't necessarily mean that they have to be expensive. They can be simple things. In a previous workshop, a young woman mentioned that she likes to get really beautiful cards, and cards are not that expensive. They're reasonably priced. So it really doesn't have to be really expensive. A long time ago, I dated somebody who asked for Gucci shoes as a gift. It's like, you're gonna need to get a Gucci job because I'm not buying those for you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to spend a lot of money on it. It's really, really being thoughtful about it and knowing what that person likes. So so how to communicate this is giving thoughtful gifts the department may want or need. And the gift recipient should be expressing gratitude when receiving that. So this love language speaks to the importance of gifts. Things to avoid are being an unenthusiastic gift receiver or being critical of the gift or the gift giver. So I've also worked with couples where a partner or spouse might give a gift, and the person who receives it is really critical. Like, I don't want that. That's not something I would wear. I think there are ways to communicate that you don't like things, like so that your needs are being met, but to do it in a way that is well received. So I have a lot of staff. I have friends who like to give gifts. I don't at this point need or want gifts. And I've had some conversations with them about that, like things that are things I can use and be done with it. So like gift cards to restaurants are great. When we could go to the movies, gift cards to movie theaters were great, but not things like books or beauty products or whatever folks used to give me. I have enough stuff around that. But we had really conversations about that were not offensive. The person was able to hear it and then to adjust. But being uncritical about that, I think, is really important. And then forgetting to mark special occasions like birthdays and anniversaries, which frequently comes up with the couples that I've worked with. The next is acts of service. So this love language is expressed by doing things that the partner would like and that ease his or her workload or reduce stress. So they oftentimes require like some thought or planning. How they're communicated is, let me help you with this. Why don't you relax and let me do this for you? And specifically asking about what tasks they would like for you to help with. There's a couple that participated in the workshop maybe a couple months ago, and they participated together, and it was on a Saturday morning, and this came up, and the husband, they have 2 kids, made breakfast for his wife and the 2 kids, and it was not well received. And I asked, why was that? Because you like acts of service. She said, well, I actually wanted him to fold the laundry with me and help me do that. I'm like, did you tell him that? No. I'm like, okay. So you know that probably could have been easily resolved and you would be not so frustrated about that if you had just communicated that. And he probably would have helped her with it. And then they could have done something like make breakfast together, which I think is something that I would suggest that couples do as well. So acts of service, actions to take, do tasks that make the partner's workload easier. Some examples of that are doing like the dishes or taking the car to be washed or filling a car with gas. Some tasks can be done together, like preparing a meal. That makes it feel, again, like more like a partnership when people are working together, and couples that I've worked with seem to like to do that. And it also fulfills the acts of service. And then physical touch. So this language speaks to the partner's need for both an emotional and physical connection. And this is communicated with nonverbal physical intimacy. So actions to take would include things like hugs, kisses, caresses, embraces from behind, things to avoid, receiving or giving affection coldly, avoiding physical touch, physical neglect, long periods without physical intimacy. So recently I've done this workshop, and there were a lot of questions around this particular love language and the current situation. So how do you deal with this when you're in a pandemic? And so some of the suggestions that I have given to folks are things that I've used myself. So my partner and I live apart, lives in LA County, but about 90 minutes away. And so we don't always see each other. And so we've done things like send gifts, send things that are important, that are physical stuff like underwear, things like that. I had a pillow made with his picture on it. And so those things are, I think, good ways to have some kind of contact where you don't have the physical touch as much as you might. Does that make sense? Questions and comments so far? Okay. So the 5 love language test was developed by Gary Chapman. He wrote a book in '92 called The 5 Love Languages, How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate. It's sold over 11 million copies and been translated to 49 languages. So we're going to take the quiz now. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to do that. Quiz is about 30 questions, very simple instructions. Read each pair of statements and circle the one that best describes you. And then at the end, total the number of answers at the bottom, and it will tell you which is your love language. And we will come back and have a discussion about that. So Marquita's put that in the chat, and it's also in the email that you received about the workshop. So if you can print that out and take that, give me some time to do that.
I also have it on the screen if anybody's having any printing issues or anything like that. I'll leave each page up for, I don't know, maybe about a minute or so, and then advance to the next, just as a backup for anybody who might be having any technical difficulties.
Okay, great, thank you. That's a great idea. So again, answer all of the questions. I've had someone do it where she did not answer all of the questions, and then it skewed the results. And so when she went back to do it, it was more in line with what her love language is.
And just for clarity, Doctor, for each one, people are choosing just one selection, correct?
Just one, yes.
Okay.
The one that most resonates with you. How are we doing? Do people still need more time? Okay, 2 minutes. Great, thank you. Thank you, Jason. Okay, Joe says he's ready. So let's give folks one more minute.
I think we just had Vanessa come in. So just to let Vanessa know what we're doing right now, we are taking this quiz on the screen right now. I'll go right back up to the top. So in the minute or so that we have left remaining, if you want to take the quiz so that you can find out what your love language is, Dr. Casillas will give you more context in just a moment.
Thank you. In about another 30 seconds. So let's talk about the results. And if you're still taking the quiz, feel free to do that and total your answers as you finish. So anybody like to share what the results were for them, like the first and second? I'll start. So my first is quality time. I like to spend time with my partner, whether that's me organizing events or whether he organizes events. And then my second, tied for second, are acts of service and physical touch. Anyone else like to share?
Hey, this is Joe.
Hi, Joe.
I got physical touch is number one and words of affirmation is number two.
Okay. Does that resonate with you or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know exactly why too, but definitely it was no surprise at the end of taking this. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Jason. I got
Hi, Jason.
physical touch was number one,
Okay.
and then words of affirmation and quality time were tied right behind it.
Okay. And does that resonate with you as well?
Very much so.
Okay, good. How about others?
This is Mike. Can you hear me?
Hi, Mike.
I was B. I had mine on B and 7 on B, so they were pretty close.
Mike, I can't hear you.
I think you're breaking up, Mike, but I think I heard that you had a lot of B's, which is quality time. Is that what you said?
Was this a close second?
Okay.
Anyone
else? Yeah, we had some difficulty hearing you. I don't know if you want to put it in the chat, but if anybody else wants to share as well. Okay.
So what does this mean and how can it help? So it really, I think, helps to identify what's important to you, what your love language is. If you're able to take this with your spouse or partner, and I would encourage you to do that, it will help you to identify what is important to him or her. And that I think is really beneficial to the relationship. So oftentimes people operate from their love language. Like if mine is quality time, I'm giving quality time a lot of the times to the person that I'm in the relationship with, whereas his is receiving gifts. So I'm giving what I like. It's not necessarily well received by him. Does that make sense? So you want to, I think, know what that person love language is. I think this can increase communication in the relationship. I didn't talk about family of origin issues, but I usually do when I do this. Most of us, I think, grow up in homes where we don't learn how to communicate. And I found that to be across culture, across race and ethnicity. Most people do not know how to communicate appropriately. And in many families, the only thing that is sanctioned is expression of anger. So you don't grow up necessarily learning how to tell people what you need and why you need it. Does that make sense? So I think when we have relationships, romantic relationships, that creates some of the problems. So as I said earlier, one of the top 3 reasons why people come in is because of communication, is we don't learn that in our families of origin. And so we cannot do that in most of our relationships. Where people are really good at it is if they've been in therapy or they've done their own self-exploration around it. But if not, it usually is a problem for most couples. Does that make sense? Questions, comments about that?
Doctor, there's a question in the chat about what if you're have an equal number of 3 different types. So if you have 8 on A, B, and E.
Okay. So I think for most of us, we want all of these things. There's some that are most important. So if you have numbers that are equal, I think they're just of equal importance to you. So as I mentioned, like my second is acts of service and physical touch are tied. They're both 8s. It was the first is quality time, and it's 10. So I like all 3 of those things, but I don't mind getting gifts. If somebody wants to give me some Gucci shoes, I'll take them. I'm not going to turn them away, but it doesn't resonate with me. It's not my first choice. It's actually the lowest for me. It's like a 2, but I would not turn that away. So I think we want all of these things. The love language quiz, though, just helps us to understand which is the strongest love language for us and the one that we usually operate with. Does that make sense? So if there is,
Yes, thank you.
you're welcome. If it's across the board, then I think that's fine. It just tells you what are the 3 most important to you.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Other questions, other thoughts? So this question comes up frequently too, like, does this change over time? And so I would say yes, I think it can change over time. Physical touch is like tied at second for me, but growing up, physical touch was probably not important because it was not something that my family necessarily did. It's something that I learned to do. So I have a friend who I've known since my dad's undergrad at UC Santa Cruz, and we've been friends for over like 30 years. And she jokes that hugging me used to be like, there was a crowbar between us. Like, it's like this far away, like, yeah, girl, not really into that. But over time that shifted, and I like physical touch much more than I liked when I was like 20, 21. So I think it can shift over time. The question recently has also come up about the pandemic. Does it change with the pandemic? So that I don't know yet, because I think that remains to be seen. We're in the middle of something that we've never experienced before, but it's quite possible that your love language could change. It's certainly impacted by the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not in physical space with my partner as much as we usually are because of this. It certainly impacted the relationships I have outside of my partnership. So I haven't seen many biological family members, close contact family members in like months, because they're like, yeah, we're good on that. We're not going to take any chances. Some of them are in higher risk categories, like they're older, like over 50, over 60, and they're not doing it. So I like physical touch now, so that has been much more of an adjustment for me. Does that make sense? Questions, comments? What were you hoping to get out of the workshop?
Hey, it's me again, Joe.
Hi,
I think just the questionnaire alone, that whether it's for myself, whether it's for friends, I know people in relationships, both gay, straight, full spectrum of everyone. I think the questionnaire alone helps to answer some questions and kind of maybe lay a baseline or some groundworks for how to communicate and or ask for what you want. So simply just that one tool, I think was great. So that's definitely a bonus that's come out of this already.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, if you're in a relationship, definitely use it with your partner. Because I think it's really helpful. I think that's part of the conflict, and that's why I do it in the Love Wins workshops that Soul to Souls puts on, because this, I think, can decrease some of the pain points and conflict, because oftentimes people are operating from their own love language and they don't really realize that. It's really unconscious, and so they're expecting their partner to give them what they need without the partner really knowing that, and vice versa. They're not oftentimes giving the partner what he or she needs because they're operating from their own love language. Does that make sense? Questions, comments? This has also come up with children and folks that have kids, like, can you do this with your kids? And I think so. I think if they're at an age where they can read, this is a basic, like probably 8th grade reading level. I think it's especially important for adolescents, because part of the mission of my company is to really break generational curses. So if we're starting to do this with kids, I think that this is really helpful, because it models appropriate communication for adolescents, so that when they get into their first relationships, they come in knowing what their needs are and they're able to discuss that. And they may enter relationships with partners who are not getting that, and can teach them that as well. Does that make sense? Questions, comments about it? Okay. All right, so I have some upcoming events that I would like to share with you. So on Thursday, I'm doing a workshop. It's online, called Reducing Conflict in Romantic Relationships. You can register on Eventbrite. This is free. It's a 1-hour workshop. We'll talk about how to reduce conflict in relationships. Some of it has to do with communication, but there are other things I think that are important in terms of reducing conflict. And then Soul to Soul is putting on a Summer of Love Film Festival. It'll be 6 Friday nights beginning this Friday. This is also free, and you can register for it on Eventbrite. In June, we did a month-long Pride Festival, film festival. If you have Netflix, it's very easy to do. You register on Eventbrite, you're on the mailing list, send out information about the Zoom room. We check in before we start the film, and then people are doing it remotely. And we've had people from all over the country. There are people from Boston and people from, actually even people from Toronto that participated in this. We're starting at 7 o'clock. So the East Coast people, they're starting at 10 o'clock. They're diehard fans that come in every week. And we've had really good discussions. After the film ends, we come back into the Zoom room. And we talk about some of the issues that come up. So Summer of Love Film Festival is about all kinds of love, not just romantic. There's a film about romantic love, but there's a film about parental love, parent-child love. The first film is called Other People, and it focuses on a relationship of a young man who came out to his family where there were issues, and his mother is battling cancer. And Disclosure is the second film about transgender folks in the media and their presentation. Laverne Cox is a big part of that. And then there were 3 other films. And then the last film is Viewer's Choice. So last month, or actually June, folks wanted to decide on something. So at the end of the term, we will be doing that. And then Love Wins, a mini weekend retreat. Soul to Soul primarily did, prior to the pandemic, on-ground retreats that were full weekend, 14 hours of instruction around issues that are important in relationships, like communication, sex, finances. We talk a lot about the minority stress model and the things that marginalized populations have to deal with that create oftentimes unconscious stress that we bring into the relationships. Like, for example, with LGBT people, the difficulty oftentimes around whether to display emotion publicly, and the impact that might have on a relationship. So this is a more mini version of it. It's 4 hours instead of the 14. It's online, it's on Zoom, and that will be on August 22nd and 23rd, Saturday and Sunday, for 2 hours on each of those days. And interested folks can find that also on Eventbrite. For members of the chamber, there's always a 10% discount, and you can access that by emailing me directly. And we have a profile on the website, on the chamber's website, and I'll also give you my email address at the end of the presentation. But this one, folks have to register at least a week in advance because there is a goodie box that I need to mail out to people if they are interested in participating. That include things like communication and sex aids. And then on Saturday, August the 15th and September the 5th, we have a SIMBIS workshop. The SIMBIS assessment, I don't know if people are familiar with SIMBIS assessment, was developed by a couple, a married couple. He is a psychologist, she is a MFT, and interested folks get a code that they use and take the assessment independent of each other. Assessment is really easy. It takes about 30 to 40 minutes. You can do that online on your mobile phone. And then it produces a report, which we unpack either in individual sessions or in a group session like this one online. And then the final thing is the Love Wins Retreat. So we've pushed that back to November. We're hoping that things will clear up. Hotels, I've been in contact with the hotels for hosting events, and they are putting into place things that allow us to socially distance and keep people safe. But that will be at the Renaissance Hotel in Long Beach in the beginning of November. Questions or comments about any of those? So what is the question from Michael is, what is SIMBIS Reveal? So the SIMBIS, there's 15 areas, Michael, that we unpack. And I recently did this with a couple. They got married last Sunday, and they both sat down with me. We did 3 sessions. We did this independent of, it was an individual session. It was not the group that I mentioned earlier, but it unpacks things around communication, marriage momentum, like folks who are in relationships under 2 years. There's a little bit more of a issue usually that comes up. So we have conversations about that. Finances, communication, questions around sex, questions around spirituality, 15 areas that we unpack. I can send you information about it if you would like. You can email me and I will send you information about that upcoming workshop. It was very helpful. I've taken it with my partner, the things that were revealed that both of us did not know about each other that were helpful to have discussions about in the relationship. So it also deals with family of origin stuff, which I think honestly really impacts relationships, and there's not oftentimes a lot of discussion about. Because I think what we see in our homes is usually modeled for us, and most people do the same thing. I can tell you that I've had so many conversations with people who will tell me, I'm not my mother, I am not my father. And then they have a love bug moment, like, wait a minute. Unfortunately, I am just like them. And that's okay, because I think that there are good things and bad things that we take from those relationships. And the key is to keep the good things and to do away with the bad things so that we, again, break generational curses in our romantic relationships and in our parental relationships if we have those. Does that make sense? Questions, comments? So this is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about any of the upcoming events, or if you would like to access that discount for chamber members. And this is our social media. You can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Sorry. Oops. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. You get it.
I wasn't sure if that was the last slide, and then
That's the last slide. Yeah, that's the last slide.
Was everyone able to get Dr. Canidas's contact information, or do you need that slide back? Okay.
And I'm on the chamber website too. So if you can't find it, you can always access me that way.
Someone needs to see it again, so let me get that back up. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. And like Dr. Kania says, he's also on the laglcc.org website. And if you received the health and wellness members e-newsletter we sent out a couple of weeks ago, he's listed there as well. Definitely want to thank the doctor for this fantastic presentation. Hope that you will immediately apply it to your present relationships and certainly to your future relationships. We at the Chamber, like I said earlier, some of you weren't quite here yet, but the Chamber has been providing programming since the shelter-in-place order went into effect. We know that it's important to not just share technical assistance with you, but also to make sure that your health and wellness is taken care of during these times. A lot of people are spending more time with their partners than ever before, and that can be very trying. So I just want to give you the tools so that you can want to give you the tools to make those relationships healthier. If you're not currently in a relationship, definitely want to give you the tools that you can apply to all of your future relationships. We do hope that you will reach out to Dr. Kanias to get additional programming, go to the online programming that he's providing, as well as sign up for the November conference as well. And we have a long list of other wellness experts in the Chamber if you're looking for everything for like body alignment to anything that strengthens your body as well as your mind. Then definitely please go on to the LAGLCC website. There are just so many different options there. Obviously, Dr. Kanias for your relationship wellness. We also have a number of people who can help with other types of trauma that you have. And so definitely want you to explore the website. So Ray, did you get the information that you needed, or do you need me to share the screen again? Perfectly happy to do that.
I save it. Recession.
Okay, this replay will be available on the LAGLCC Facebook page. So if you missed anything, please be sure to go back to that. And if you need a deeper dive into any of this, please reach out to the doctor as well. We're perfectly happy to take any additional questions. If not, we'll give you back the next 10 minutes of your day, but we do still have some time available if there's anything that anybody had a question about while the doctor is here, because he's a very busy man. He told me his schedule for this week, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, are there three of you? So while you have the doctor, so while you have the doctor available here, feel free to ask any questions. Joe, you look like you've got a burning question, but you feel like you've asked too many. There are never too many questions. Love to have you ask another.
Joe, we want to hear it. We want to hear it.
Yeah, I do. This is more of probably an observation / statement that at least in the gay community, I tend to see more often. So I'm just going to read what someone wrote in an online profile and then maybe ask a question or make a statement, whatever. So someone wrote, okay, so you should send me a message if, and here's their text. And this is obviously just in their public profile, not directly to me, but send me a message if you're cute and have something to say and not taking any of this seriously. I really enjoy good conversation, so please be able to talk about yourself and your life. I'm looking for the real deal, real love, and everything it has to offer. I hope you are too. So here's my observation, and this kills me because I see this too often. Someone's asking for something real, but then they throw in the statement of, hope you're not taking this too seriously. So what that says to me is, hey, I want you to value my time, but don't value it or don't value your own time. And I feel like I'm a person who I actually take everyone's time and energy like seriously. I really do, meaning I don't take it for granted. I respect it. And I think I'm coming from the right place for that. And I feel like people are berating each other, kind of putting other people down for genuinely taking the time and energy seriously in a sense. So I don't know if this is for anyone else or for you, doctor. This is an observation that you've seen. people want something, but they don't actually know how to ask for it, or how to, like this person saying, hey, I want this, but remember, I'm really chill.
Yeah.
Don't take it too seriously. And it kind of makes me sick because at least in the gay community, I don't see examples of really good, positive relationships. I don't see those role models. I don't see those examples. I don't live in West Hollywood, but I live close to it. And examples are not positive. And that's a reflection of what I read. I was like, oh my God, this is it. And I screenshotted it. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, so whether that's a question, whether that's a statement of observation for everyone, that's just something that I saw about relationships.
So I think that's an astute observation. I think most people don't know what they want or how to ask for it. And so that's part of this presentation. Yeah, I thank Marquita for having me here because there aren't a lot of discussions around this. And Sheena, before we started today, I was telling her that I'm doing a presentation tomorrow with the National Gay Wedding Association. And we're going to just talk about how this category is not even represented when we talk about weddings. Like people don't think to do premarital counseling. They don't think to do any of that stuff. They'll spend $20,000 on a wedding, but not really be prepared for the marriage. So I think you're right. Like people just don't know how to do that. We don't learn how to do that in most families. We're not used to asking for what we want or need. So it's followed sometimes by a joke or laughter to diminish the initial ask. So I want this, but ha ha ha, I don't, because we really don't know how to deal with that. So in the weekend retreats, like we unpack all this stuff. It's not therapy, but oftentimes the things that come up lead people into therapy around their relationship issues. So I have folks that, especially in LA County, that refer people to that they go through the workshop and it raises other issues. But there's so much stuff around family of origin. I probably could just do a whole workshop on that needs to be unpacked for people. And I think we have, oftentimes LGBT people grew up in families where they're not supportive and you don't come out until you're an adult, well into adulthood. So you didn't really even have the opportunity to be your true self when you were growing up. So you did not learn how to have relationships. You weren't dating. Most of us weren't dating when we were teens because most people were in the closet. They weren't really out. So how does that stuff come out and affect how we seek relationships and how those relationships are once we get attached to somebody? So heterosexual people deal with this stuff too. I'm gonna tell you that they have stuff that's the same. The difference for us is that there's stuff around the minority stress model and being part of a marginalized population that is not really dealt with. And that we don't even know that it really exists. It's unconscious. We're not questioning that. So being LGBT is one thing. And if you add other things, when we talk about intersectionality, you add race and gender and SES and disability and all of those things show up in relationships and can be really pain points and harmful because people aren't really conscious of it. Does that make sense? So this is kind of just surfacey. I mean, I think that's why the weekend is 14 hours. And it just, even with the 14 hours, we don't get to everything. I could probably do a whole like 30 hours or a semester class on it, but we kind of put it into the weekend and people stay over the weekend. And, you know, there's a sense of camaraderie for the couples that come to it, and it's overnight. And it's really a nice way to unpack these issues as part of a relationship. But I can tell you that we probably don't get to everything with even the 14 hours. A lot of stuff is related to family origin. And it's unconscious and it's hard for people to unpack and for all families, but I think a lot of times with people of color who grow up in families where there are issues around like expression of emotion and all that stuff. I think all that stuff impacts relationships. It can be in a positive way, but oftentimes it's negative because we weren't able to talk about those things growing up. Does that make sense? Joe, did I answer the question? Because I sometimes get on my soapbox and start talking, and hopefully I answered your initial question. I think it's all that stuff that is related to that.
Doctor, we have one more question, but before we get to that question, I just want to do a quick screen share to share some of the wellness folks that I talked about earlier. I mentioned body alignment, which is the Barkley Structural Integration and Pacific Vibes Chiropractic. Some of the other people you might want to check out, Susan Wolf Coaching. She's a health and wellness coach. Zen Casa is yoga and meditation from the comfort of your own home. Proficiency coaching is life coaching using something called the energy leadership technique. So these are some of the other wellness folks. Everyone's in a different category. So there's a lot of wellness that you can get just by exploring these members here. I just wanted to make sure you all got a chance to check them out before we finished up here. And I know that Michael had a question, so we're gonna get over to Michael's question.
Okay,
Michael.
great.
Great, thank you. I called in on a line, so I didn't go through my computer, which is sounds like it's underwater. So as a single person in the gay community, I live in Brentwood, so I'm not too far from West Hollywood, but I tend to source a lot of straight guys or people that are unavailable. And I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and I'm 56, so I didn't come out until, I was 30. So for me, I have all that part is all missing, when I was, playing for the other team, so to speak. And so I feel like either I'm not presenting myself as available for a long-term relationship, or I'm not looking in the right places, or some combination, or maybe it's just at my age, it's harder. A lot of more people are coupled up. I get a lot of daddy requests, but as far as sort of peer-to-peer sorts of things, I don't still get that many. So that's my question.
Okay. So is your question about whether you're making yourself available or not? Did I hear that correctly?
Well, I don't know whether it's if I'm not making myself available, or just the numbers are so small for people that are my age, that are single, that are looking for a long-term monogamous relationship. And I just need to, just to increase the numbers of where I'm getting out there. Or there are lots of people out there and it's more me, and I'm just not saying or doing the right things to attract those people, because there are lots of people in their, 30s, 40s, and 50s that are looking for long-term. I just don't have a sense of the community and how big that is. And I'm a stats guy, so I start looking at the numbers. Do I need to change me, or do I need to just increase the numbers of people I'm reaching to achieve that goal?
So I think it might be a combination of the two. So I think we're always evolving, so myself included. So it could be something that you need to work on in terms of yourself, but I think that it might also be where you're looking for people. So there are older people out there who are looking for relationships, and like Facebook has a program that you can look at. Zoosk, Zoosk, I think is a program that you can look at. There are other programs like I've done presentations on dating the LGBT community, and specifically talked about certain apps. Like you can't find somebody on Adam for Adam, or some of the other apps like those. They're looking for a specific thing. Sometimes it's dating and friendship, but most times it's a hookup. So that would not be a place to look for that. But there are applications for LGBT folks who are looking for serious relationships in your age group, in my age group. I think you just have to look for those folks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, as Patrick said, I'm not alone. I think a seminar on that would be awesome. I think there are a lot of, I hope there are a lot of single people that are that, that are out there looking. I just don't know where to find them online or in person, and that kind of stuff. And with online stuff, when people go out, it feels like when I go to West Hollywood, it feels very cliquey to me. I go there and everybody's in little cliques. If I go to talk to somebody, they look at me like, why are you talking to me? And so I'm like, okay, well, I sort of walk away. And it used to be more people would mingle, but now I think people assume you'll find the right person online, and that sort of thing. And I live in a really straight world, a really straight community. Almost all my friends are straight, so I can't get introduced to people. And so I've got a bunch of stuff that I feel like is going against me. I think least for me, there would be a real good use for something for singles.
And I'm open to that. I'm open to doing that because I have done that before on college campuses. We talked about dating with LGBT people and things that work and don't work. Primarily, the company now focuses on like couples, but there is always room for me to do that. And people have asked about that when I opened the company a year ago. So I'm open to doing that and maybe can come back and do that. Something on singles that probably be well attended because in LA, it is hard to meet people and people go out and they're not really interested in meeting people. That's not the way people meet each other anymore. Like most people do meet online, and that's heterosexual and LGBT folks. That is the way that people are meeting. They're not meeting in church. They're not meeting at the grocery store. They're not meeting at bars anymore. That is the way to do it. So there are ways to do that so that it works if you're looking for a relationship versus like meeting people for sex or what have you.
Thank you, Doctor. That is amazing and insightful. It is the top of the hour, so we're going to wrap this up. I know that we could talk about this all day. This is a really great topic. I do want to encourage you to follow up with Dr. Canillas, also to check out the LAGLCC for our upcoming programming. As I mentioned, on the 12th, we're having Becoming a Consciously Inclusive Leader. I really recommend that you check out that workshop. It's going to be a session where Dr. Steve Iacovelli explores the 3 areas every leader should focus on in order to be more consciously inclusive. It's a very important topic during this time in particular. It helps you unpack your unconscious bias, to speak up to more, to create a more inclusive workplace, and to act out in ways that you can foster a feeling of belonging for everyone within your organization and in your life. So you can register for that for August 12th. That'll be at 2 p.m. Pacific. And we really, really hope to see you at that session. So again, thank you all so much for being here. It was great to see some people I haven't seen in a while, like Patrick, see some new faces like Joe and Ray, Becky, thank you for being here, Michael and James as well. Please enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you so much for being here. You can check out the replay on our Facebook page.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.